Quick question. Can y'all hear me if I just kind of speak without the mic? No? Yes? No? You need the mic? Okay. I'll give it a shot. See what happens. So first, thank you very much for having me. This is a real pleasure, and it's a real privilege to be here. My name is Rachel Sanderson. I'm Associate Director of the La Florida Project, the Interactive Digital Archive of the Americas. And like I said, I get kind of excited, so I'm going to watch the time pretty closely. And also I'm excited because I might have some surprises for you today in my little presentation. LaFlorida.org is it's an open access site, and our idea is to combine this innovative historical research with cutting edge technology, because we recognize that screens are what's taking up most of this generation's attention. And so like I said, it's open access. I invite you to visit the site and check it out, but also keep coming back because we upload new content pretty regularly, and the whole site is under a redesign. So in January, we should launch a brand new version, and that's my plug. But today, I want to talk a little bit about a new project that we recently initiated about 8 months ago that really came out of the 1619 commemoration. And the 1619 commemoration, in many ways, is really a fabulous national initiative, right? I think it's brought a lot of reflection, not just to the institution of slavery, but also to the roles that people of African descent have played in shaping this American historical narrative. But as someone who focuses on 16th century Florida, something always kind of bothered me about the 1619 commemoration, and it's that they're off by 106 years. So,
at least,
what we had decided to start doing, you know, I'm a historian, I'm in the archives, we just kind of start keeping track of all the people of African descent that we're encountering. And like Ms. Chin said, and like Sheila said earlier, the first recorded person of African descent came to Florida in 1513 with Ponce de Leon. So what we don't really think about sometimes is that this man, Juan Garrido, identified also as a Spaniard. And he crafted this letter, so he's literate, he's writing to the crown. This letter is a proof of merit petition. It's something carefully crafted so that he can say, this is what I've done while I was in Florida. As you can see, Florida's on the screen. These are my services. I've introduced wheat, for example. He claims to be the one who introduces wheat to Mexico. And then he asks for compensation from the crown. So that's what a proof of merit petition is. But in this proof of merit petition, he also claims to be the first person to build a Christian chapel in Mexico, because he was there with Hernando de Soto. And so we kind of look at these indigenous chronicles, and we're not sure that this individual is Juan Garrido, Handsome John. Someone needs to make a movie about him, so I hope not all performing arts people have left. We're not sure that this is Juan Garrido, but what we do know is that people of African descent played critical roles on every single expedition to Florida and to the Americas in general. She did a great job of covering these early expeditions. So in that 1513 expedition with Juan Ponce, we know that there were slaves on that ship too. It's not recorded, but we know that there were. But we do know that there are 2 free black conquistadors on the ship. 1526, Lucas Vasquez de Ayllón. He sets up that first kind of settlement in what I guess you would call now Sapelo Island in Georgia. And so San Miguel del Guadalupe is the place of the first slave revolt. They set fire there was a mutiny, and they set fire to the house of the guy who led the mutiny. It's a fabulous story, again, another great movie. And then, you know, that continues consistently, without exception. People of African descent are on these expeditions. So talking about 1538, what you're looking at are licenses. If you wanted to go to the Indies in the 16th century from Spain, you'd have to travel from wherever you're at to Seville, to the House of Trade, and obtain a license. You kind of had to answer some questions, prove who you were, and get a license so that you had permission to go. These are the licenses, so I don't blame people for not consulting them regularly. They're pretty difficult. These are licenses for Hernando de Soto's expedition. And again, you find people like Alonso de Pareda. He's identified himself as a Spaniard, a natural de Talavera. He's also black, a free black conquistador, one of 7 that we found so far on this expedition. So one of the challenges that historians have been facing for generations is how to kind of how to track the people who are part of these expeditions but who aren't represented in the records, because people of African descent are often not represented in the documentation. Women are often not represented in the documentation. Native Americans are not represented. So how do we make up for this? Well, you start to look at entries like this one. This is a lengthy proof of merit petition from a man named Baltasar de Gallegos. And in it, he basically says, let's see, le mataron negros y caballos. So he's saying that as they were in Southeast Florida, their Soto expedition came into contact with indigenous populations several times, and there were skirmishes. And in one of them, they killed several of his black slaves and horses. So these people weren't represented at all. So we have these 7 freed black conquistadors on the trip, but it's argued that there were over 200 people of African descent on this expedition. I think when you think about the Soto expedition, typically it's 600 Spaniards came, and over 200 people were probably part of this early expedition. And then we get to Pedro Menendez de Avilés. So as a Florida person, you might know, he comes in 1565 and he settles the first permanently occupied European city in the continental United States. I think I got it all.
You got it.
I think. So he settles this town, and there were several people of African descent on that trip. In fact, within months of their arrival, a marriage was celebrated. The elites of the society served as the sponsors, as sort of like the witnesses for this wedding. There was a big party. It's documented, actually. They did a really great job. It was between a man from Segovia, Spain, named Miguel Rodriguez, and he was a soldier, and a woman named Luisa de Abrego, a free black woman from Seville, Spain. This is the oldest marriage record that we have for the United States, including Puerto Rico.
What year?
This happened in 1565.
What was her name?
Luisa de Abrego. Mm-hmm. So, think about that for just a second. The oldest recorded Christian marriage we have for our country is an interracial marriage. Is that in the National Museum for African History and Culture? African American History? No. Is it in any textbook you've ever seen? If this happened in Texas or Virginia or California or any state that ends in Massachusetts, it would be in every textbook that you see. Every 4th grade student would know this story. Instead, it's relegated to kind of an unknown, like a factoid. Abrego. Like the Spanish word for coat, if that helps for the memory.
Abriaca.
2, the Spanish, I call them kind of the inventors of bureaucracy, right? So they record everything pretty closely. And so they have these treasury records. Again, difficult to read if you don't have Spanish paleography, but this man listed in 1566, his name is Luis, he's a mulatto, and he's a translator who served in the area of Chief Carlos. So he's someone who's serving in 1566 on the Spanish Crown's payroll as a translator in the Calusa territory, so right around Marco Island area. And he's not the only one. It's not like this, I'm finding the few exceptions that we have to the rule. This particular individual, his name is Juanillo, Little John, and he's also a translator. And he was held captive by Saturiba for several years. Saturiba's territory was probably present-day Jacksonville. And the problem is he leaves with Menendez early on, and he ends up in the Caribbean somewhere, and we lose track of him. So what we're doing at laflorida.org is we're starting this new project, this digital exhibit called Black Society in Spanish Florida. It's 1513 to 1540, so we're starting with Ponce de Leon, that first Spanish expedition to the Florida territory. And we're going well into the 1840s because we're digitizing primary documents that go that far, yeah. Our goal here is to try to, overall, laflorida.org wants to create a biographic database of everyone we encounter in the documents who lived in Florida between 1513 and 1821, that colonial period, right before Florida gets transferred to the United States as a territory. That's over 300 years of data, so you guys are getting an idea of my social life, I'm sure.